Hello indie game fans, I have more upcoming indie games to get excited about, where most of these should be 2025 releases since it is that time of year, with more upcoming games of 2025 coverage to come. So let's begin with the follow-up to also being an action platformer, but this time looking to be more level based and also retaining a pixel art style but different as compared to their other game and looks sleek. We also had the confirmation of the early access release date of New Arc Line, a sweet looking CRPG set in a world that mixes magic and steampunk. There is an eternal conflict between the two sides, where it appears that you can join either side in the story, with a mixture between elves, dwarves, and sorcery, contrasted with zeppelins and Tesla guns, does look intriguing, with what appears to be a very ambitious looking world with all kinds of monstrosities. So let's see how much content there is in this early access release. This video is brought to you by Mindcop, a non-linear whodunit detective adventure game where a shocking murder has taken place, and as the infamous Mindcop, you must figure out who the murderer is within 5 days by using your special abilities. Time is of the essence in this game, since time passes with every action that you take, whether it be from research or solving puzzles, so you need to be very aware of this due to the deadline that you have to meet. Our hero's main power is to sneak into the minds of any one of the suspects, playing out as a real-time puzzle, and if you manage to break in, you will get access to their sea of thoughts, uncovering their secrets and unraveling their lies in your search for the truth. Of course, with the time pressure, you need to make tough decisions and prioritize which leads to pursue and which to let go of, since those are potential dead ends, having a slick, almost detective noir kind of vibe, which is cool and does have 2 endings depending on your choices. This just released on Steam, PS5 and Nintendo Switch today, November 14th, 2024, so if interested, pick it up via the link in the description below. A throwback first-person shooter is Darkenstein 3D, one that is of course inspired by the older Wolfenstein and Doom games as compared to their modern counterparts, and is an all-action title with a dose of weird science for good measure. Set in 1940s Germany, you play as an American drifter known as Hobo Guy, whose dog is taken by the Nazis, so in John Wick fashion, you enter their castle and unleash hell upon them as a one-man army. Of course, the variety of weapons will be key, and there appears to be a nice mix between shotgun, machine gun, Gatling gun, rocket launcher, flamethrower and more, where you even have a rat companion which you can throw at enemies to eat their faces. Apparently, this will be free, with a demo already being available right now, so you can try that and wishlist it to get notified about the full release. It looks like second time's the charm for Lone Fungus Melody of Spores, the follow-up to Lone Fungus from 2023, since this is their second attempt at Kickstarter, and as of recording, it is at something like 97% funded, so I don't see any problems for it getting over the finish line. While technically the follow-up, this is actually a prequel set thousands of years before the original game, where you play as Green Cap's ancestor, who is also a green cap mushroom, fighting their way through their world where the various mushroom tribes are being destroyed and divided by a mythical creature known as the Spirit Beast. As compared to the more Hollow Knight inspiration of the other game, this title draws upon Castlevania, down to the whip as a main weapon, and also 8 directional weapon aiming with sub-weapons as well, but it is supposed to have more modern and fluid movement in the game. In Metroidvania fashion, you'll discover new abilities and upgrades, allowing you to get to previously inaccessible areas, and again, while this looks to be more tribute and doesn't appear to be doing anything too innovative or crazy, it looks like a good one of these and should be neat. A pretty cool looking game is Rusty Winter, which got my attention due to what else but the pixel art, where this is a detective narrative adventure game set in the gritty city of Gershan, a place that echoes the faded glory of once thriving industrial towns. The central narrative in this game revolves around a complex missing persons case as our hero, a self-made detective, searches for a missing loved one, finding clues and tracking down leads in order to solve the case. Interestingly, this game is set in the year 2016, so it is not that long ago, so you'll see modern looking areas like bars and carnivals, also hinting at possible paranormal aspects in the game. There will be an interesting cast of characters as well as something known as the Land Beneath, a gateway to another world of an ultra-advanced utopia beyond human understanding, so it's kind of trippy and weird in that way. The pixel art is meticulously crafted and looks good, although there's something about the look of this game that is throwing me off, probably because of the character proportions, but it's an interesting looking title for sure. Now this title I can get behind since the pixel art here is more familiar and awesome, and one look at Pipkin and of course your mind immediately goes to Earthbound, both due to the way that the eyes are drawn for the sprites, but also the very classic looking turn-based combat interface. They are going for an autumn/Halloweeny kind of vibe, with the release planned for October 2025, which is perfect, with its Kickstarter already being funded, so here's wishing the developer all the best. The developer of Defenders Dynasty shared their game with me, and I wanted to give them a shout out since this base defense RTS looks interesting. You're constructing buildings to both increase production and enhance your economy, but also have to consider defenses against waves of enemies by building towers, although curiously, walls don't seem to be a thing here. There is a hero aspect which you can use to fight enemies, but it's a much more simplified kind of RTS with a decent look. And while it does kind of look like a mobile game due to the user interface, this is 100% a premium title with no microtransactions, at least as of recording, with randomization of the world, but the developer does not state anywhere on the Steam page that this is a roguelite. Another Kickstarter success story is Sea of Legends, of note since Jordan Weissman, the creator of Battletech, MechWarrior, Shadowrun and more, is involved in this project, creating a pirate-themed tactical sea RPG with deck building elements which looks neat. They are combining the tactical combat of Shadowrun with the exploration and adventure of Sid Meier's Pirates, as well as the deck building of Slay the Spire. You are in command of your own ship and set sail on adventures across the Caribbean, leading your crew to victory through strategic maneuvers and tactical combat. There is a little bit of an open structure to this, since you are free to land on any island, pursue and engage in battle with any ship that you can board, take loot to sell in ports, and even play the role of a merchant, buying low and selling high as you transport precious cargo from one place to another. However, the Caribbean is full of danger, not only from rival pirates or even the forces of the Crown, but also the Dread Tide, which comprises of living dead conquistadors led by their skeletal colossus who seek vengeance on the living. Interestingly, there is also a romance system in this game as you woo lovers to gain their emotional and material support, where I'm interested in the central narrative, if there is an actual endpoint to the game, or if it is more of a sandbox that allows you to play however you want. Just a quick one here in Kinpath, since the team who made this animated trailer showed it to me, which got me interested, but if the developers are watching, do get your gameplay trailer out as soon as possible. So in the meantime, here are some screenshots showing off this micro RPG auto battler. You are leading a squad of frogs to explore the world, fighting enemies and to build a lasting family legacy, having some nice looking pixel art as well, and is worth keeping an eye on. I don't know why, but there seems to be an increase in the number of car combat roguelike titles, not of the twisted metal variety with the arenas, but one that takes place on a seemingly endless road. See Redline Crooks as an example, with the next title being Scaravan 66. Of course, from the title, this has a spooky theme where you are battling fiends from the underworld in an attempt to outrun the devil. Interestingly, you play as a Road Reaper, a Grim Reaper that is forever bound to the highway where you died, having to harvest mortal souls as your job, but you are attempting to break free of this tether through oil and carnage, having meta progression in between runs as well, and is something different. The developer of Wasteland Waste Disposal has also shown off the game to me multiple times, so I wanted to help them along, being a post-apocalyptic action-adventure base builder in which you have to clean up the wasteland, which has been ravaged by a catastrophic event known as the Megapocalypse. Pollution and junk has been spread throughout the world, so you need to clean it up, restore the environment, and rebuild society by navigating this dynamic ecosystem which reacts and evolves with your actions. This is a small open world in which you are free to explore, moving around in your mobile fortress, which looks like some sort of spider tank which has to be maintained, but can also be upgraded and serves as a base to convert collected resources into new materials, machinery, and money. You need to decide between upgrades, repairs, and even recruiting Wastelanders to help, looking pleasant in that power wash simulator kind of way, so I suppose it's kind of a cozy game, even if there is acid rain and radioactive storms in this game. Another developer that reached out is making Punch the Garden, a side-scrolling roguelike platformer in which you play as, get this, a walking moustache who is entering a park, but not just any park, but one which is filled with deadly inhabitants like worms, punching pigeons, and shrubs which shoot lasers at you. As such, it's a pretty cool looking title with a more level-based arena that you don't see often in roguelike platformers, since the action is largely contained and you are not always moving from left to right. It has an awesome pixel art style and a cute look as well, with the expected meta progression systems, permanent upgrades, passive abilities, and more, so definitely wishlist this game. Another neat looking title is Denari, a good looking action-adventure title about a boy who has telekinetic powers, having to use it to save his people from the invasion of a foreign empire. I like the art style and use of colours here, reminiscent of classic cartoons, with the main character kind of looking like Sonic as well, so there's a charm to it. Action here is front and centre as you slash at enemies, knock them back, dodge, dash, get behind them to counter, and more, mixing in the use of telekinesis to redirect ranged projectiles or to use telekinetic blasts. Boss fights look pretty epic as well, and looks like it has a large world with different towns and biomes to explore, and adding to that is the ability to walk between worlds, receiving wisdom from the spirits that inhabit this realm, which appears to be the very blue looking areas in this trailer, looking pretty good and will be for fans of the genre. I caught the wind of NITRO Gen Omega on Twitter, where this is a self-described spaghetti anime turn-based tactics RPG, which according to the developer is similar to spaghetti western, being anime-looking art which is made in Italy, which is where they are from. However, I wouldn't use tactical RPG to describe this game, being more JRPG in my opinion, but does have an interesting turn-based combat system. Your squad of mercenaries is piloting a giant mech in a wasteland overrun with machines, where you have to command each of the 4 pilots individually, since they are in charge of different parts of the mech, from driver, gunner, engineer, and operator, having to work together and coordinate on the timeline-based system to most effectively battle your opponents. You have access to an airship which can fly and explore the open world, but also serves as a home base for your pilots with a Persona-style relationship building system, but are also able to recruit procedurally generated pilots to expand your crew, certainly having one of the coolest looks around and has shot up my personal wishlist as well. Another awesome looking pixel art title is Eighthwell, an action-adventure title filled with charm and humour. You play as Oscar, the Lost Boy, and will embark on a thrilling journey to explore the quirky town of Eighthwell, which is filled with peculiar residents and enigmatic secrets, fighting your way through unique locations to discover its mysteries. Not much else is given to the story, so we'll have to see, with the Zelda-looking action-adventure combat, but with projectiles looking good. This one's for tactics fans since Clonizer is a hex grid based roguelite tactical deck builder in which you are exploring unique planets and battling aliens with your crew of clones. Interestingly, there are base building elements where you create clones to help in the construction of buildings and exploration of an area, switching over to combat when you encounter aliens, where the cards that you use to battle enemies come from the various departments of your company. The turn-based combat looks strategic since you have attacks and abilities that affect multiple tiles at once, where these also depend on your position. As you travel through the procedurally generated galaxy, there are missions to undertake along with random events, all with the greater goal of becoming Employee of the Month at ClonePo by clonizing the entire universe. There are blueprints to get, shopkeepers to interact with, and so much more, having an adorable art style as well, and I'm curious about the meta progression systems, if any, but it sure looks like a title worth keeping an eye on, with there being a playable demo available right now, so go give that a try on Steam. A neat-looking, all-action first-person shooter is VERSEBREAK, a pretty fast-paced elemental title in which you play as a crusader, but one that does not do his talking with his sword, mace, flail or warhammer, but rather his bare magical hands instead. There are 4 elements in this game, which I'm guessing are fire, ice, water and wind, based on the trailer, since it is not stated on the Steam page, using these to blast away at enemies, and can even be combined to form stronger abilities. These are also used in the movement, since you can use flame propulsion to fly in the sky, and to use other abilities mid-flight to reposition yourself, having an emphasis on a variety of attacks to increase your style points, which in turn increases brain power, which allows you to access more powerful abilities. Enemies here include augmented humans, monsters and demons, where the story setup is that the entire world has declared war against God, and God in turn has declared war on the entire world as well. Another feature that caught my eye is that you heal by taking damage in this game, so I don't know how that is supposed to work, but it gets me curious at the very least. There is no mention of run-based or high-score chase here, so I'm presuming that this is a linear title that sees you fighting your way through levels, with the teaser boss fight at the end of this trailer looking pretty awesome as well. Photogeist album's Stayfer River Saga was described to me as Pokemon Legends Arceus plus Pokemon Snap with RPG elements, puzzle solving, collection, battling and PS1 style graphics, so of course I was in, being an awesome alternative take on the monster taming genre. Set on an eccentric's farm, you are helping to solve the case of sabotage that seems to be supernatural in origin, wandering the farm and taking photos of these strange creatures named Geists. But not all of these are friendly, so
prepare for trouble!
It has that classic looking turn-based combat system, but you have the option to either fight and banish them or to appease them Undertale style, with the collection element taking the form of a photo album where the more photos you manage to take, the more lore about the Geist is revealed. The art style is pretty sick as well, so if you love photography or monster taming games or both, this is the title for you, with there being a free demo named Case 1 available right now on their itch.io page, so you can give that a try. If you enjoy roguelite deck builders, Decktamer might be one of interest, since there is an added twist to it in adding a monster taming element, with the freaky looking designs of the monsters being a highlight as well. You are delving into the mysterious abyss, encountering a wide variety of creatures that have mutated and evolved to adapt to their strange environment, with the hope of finding a great fortune at the bottom of a giant crater if you manage to make it down. Instead of simply attacking and killing enemies, you have the opportunity to recruit them to your party as well, but has a permadeath element where your monsters which die are lost forever. Interestingly, you will be able to transfer abilities from one creature to another by further mutating them, which is where the strategy comes in, and refreshingly, is the more Magic the Gathering or Hearthstone kind of combat as compared to Slay the Spire, which is a nice change. here's an awesome looking title since the Paper Mario looking visuals of Bounce Castle certainly got my attention and is a turn-based tactics title but with a twist as well. You see, gone are the grids despite the deceptive checkerboard level design, since your units and enemies are not bound to this, and where combat is not like in Fire Emblem or Final Fantasy Tactics, but rather has physics to it. Attacks can be lobbed and aimed at enemies, knocking them back into walls and causing them to ricochet all over the place, including into traps and hazards, looking like something different to wrap your head around. Set in a magical fantasy kingdom, our heroes must protect the realm and the precious flow crystals within. Enemy attack intentions are also made known to you in that Into the Breach kind of way, so you know which to prioritize, looking like a pretty high potential strategy game. Another title which had a good start ever since it was first announced is Cattle Country, a cowboy adventure life sim title in which you play as a pioneer travelling west in search of a new life, since their reveal trailer included the voice of one Roger Clark, better known as Arthur Morgan in Red Dead Redemption 2, being the perfect fit for this kind of game. This is a unique blend of wholesome and action-adventure games, mixing the simplicity and calming effect of farming and crafting with the excitement of adventures in the Wild West. In farming game fashion, you will build up your own little settlement, working the land, raising cattle and expanding your farm, getting to know the locals and helping them out in order to survive, with memorable characters, each having their own stories to tell. Of course, not everyone in Cattle Country is friendly since there are bandits around, so you need to be on the lookout for nefarious plots and shady characters in order to protect your homestead and community from harm. There's also a relationship system with 18 romanceable characters which expands the simulation aspect and does also have a mine to explore to dig for minerals and ore, hunting of wild animals, bandit stashes and more, looking like the quintessential Wild West title with a great pixel art look as well. If you're watching this video on the day of publication, their open beta is currently running until 18th November, so hop on over to the Steam page to download, play and give the developers some feedback so that they can make this even better. Like Bounce Castle mentioned earlier, Double Dungeon caught my eye due to the art style, not having a Paper Mario look in this case, but having one which more resembles claymation, which is kind of cool, even if I'm not a fan of Wallace and Gromit. This is a more classic turn-based tactics title on a square grid in which a party of heroes battles across an island to end a powerful curse once and for all. The gimmick in this game is dice, since every character rolls at the start of their turn, which can then be used to activate their attacks and abilities, with the twist being that there is no percentage chance to hit here and your actions will execute exactly as described. As with most dice games, you can change your rolls by gently nudging them in one direction or another, adding more strategy to the game. Of course, there's loot and skill tree progression, and is a roguelite as well, with procedurally generated levels and a boss at the end of every island looking pretty impressive. Developer Mythic Owl has been around for a little while, with releases on Steam dating back to at least 2018, where I think that they might have found their hit in Truckful, a cozy looking driving title with a twist. You're making your way across the countryside, driving through valleys and on uneven roads in order to deliver much needed goods, but beware since the old forest is watching. Yes, this has been compared to Dredge in terms of vibes, where you are doing a rather ordinary, mundane, cozy task, but something is not quite right with the world, with a central mystery to uncover in the countryside towns as well. There is a little bit of a simulation aspect here, since physics applies to the car handling, but I don't think it's that far off in the simulation direction like Mud Runner, but you do need to consider loading capacity and various upgrades as you drive the truck around to safely deliver the items to where they need to go, and is certainly one to watch. If you're a millennial like me that grew up with Warcraft 3, I'm pretty sure that Darfall will be a gem, since this is a hero-based defense city builder, having to fend off waves of monsters and demons to protect your people. This has an almost RTS-like gameplay loop, since you need to gather resources, fortify your town, train troops, build defenses, and explore the surrounding lands. But when night falls, enemies will emerge from the darkness and you need to fight them off. The art style here is polygonal characters, which sure does look like Warcraft 3 to me, down to having a Dreadlord looking enemy and more, and continues a trend of defense games started by They Are Billions and continued with games like Age of Darkness, Final Stand, and Cataclysmal, and looks like a great one of these. No Steam page as of yet for this next title, but by the time this video releases, the Kickstarter campaign for Former Dawn would have just concluded, being an 8-bit action-adventure RPG with a 16-bit soul, which is being made for both the PC and NES. Yes, you heard that right, an NES title targeted for release in 2026 is weird but interesting, since they are limited by the cartridge and have to fit a modern game onto that. This game is a love letter to the classic JRPGs of the 90s, mentioning Final Fantasy 4-6, Chrono Trigger and Breath of Fire 3 and 4 by name, but also has real-time action elements like Secret of Mana or Alundra, which is of note. Set in the aftermath of a failed terraforming mission, humanity has died out, leaving behind a child species known as the Formers. You play as a common hunter who rediscovers the truth about the world and must fight against a faceless organization, recruiting a crew of brave Formers in the process. Of course, I do like the look of this game, and I'm very curious as to how they are making this, since it is supposed to have a massive world to explore, with over 45 areas to discover, 30 bosses to defeat, and 50 base enemy types, and yet it can run on the humble NES hardware, which is due to a custom memory mapper named MXM1. I have no idea what that means technically, but it sure seems impressive, having a curious mix of both real-time and turn-based combat. This has raised about $186,000, which is just past their target of $160,000, so I hope that development is smooth and this gets made, and PC fans, don't worry, there will be widescreen support, and I'm pretty intrigued by this. Watch this video for more of the best pixel art games.